The roundtable high school discussion is coming along very well. I was actually able to meet with Martha Gagnon today from Mathnasium. She was kind enough to stop at my house, so I didn't have to leave. And although I am not a math expert, we talked a little math just to get an idea. Seems like a very reputable person, and I think we'll be, we'll do a good job. I wanted to go over a couple of the subjects. In talking to Becky Berg, she would like to have us, and I would also kind of finalize what subjects we are going to talk about and the way we're going to phrase those, so that during the training, which will happen next week, she can introduce those subjects to the facilitators and they can get comfortable with them. Before we do that, I could just update you a little bit on the kind of how we're fine-tuning the meeting. We're going to have 12 tables. We're figuring on 6 subjects. So one subject will be on 2 tables. So that will reduce the rotation so that you only need to go, people only need to visit 6 tables to have visited all the subjects. We are planning to have, after the last discussion, an evaluation form of the process to have people fill out. There won't be any questions about the high school, but just the roundtable meeting form itself, and what people find valuable about it or what they haven't. And then at that point, we are going to, Becky will have a few closing statements to try to summarize what we have done, and then we are inviting people to take their stickers and apply them on the wall to the subjects that they feel most strongly about, and to enjoy some refreshments. And we're hoping at that point, with the refreshments and all, that would allow people some time to stay around and talk and informally and before they, just rush off. So that's kind of the format of the meeting. At the next meeting, our next school board meeting, I think we should discuss any facts that we're going to present before, but we have a little time to do that. But what I'd like to do is try to, agree on the 6 subjects. In talking to Becky, she suggested that we have our subjects be very general as to not try to lead people into a particular position. That was her advice. So I'm just sharing that with you as a board as we try to come up with what these subjects should be. I do have some suggestions here, but in a manner not to lead you either. I kind of just like to open it up, and if you want to do this now, I do need to do it before the end of the meeting. So, well, the 6 topics that I had, and by no means, these are open for discussion. I had a topic, Manchester. Another topic, Hooksett own high school. Another topic, one high school of record. Another topic, contract with multiple schools, and a topic of special education. We do kind of need to keep it to 6 if we want to have 12 tables and divide evenly to give everybody a choice. We could go to 7, but not an expectation that it's going to be an equal representation on that issue. So I guess at this point I'm looking for any input or discussion about these topics, and then hopefully at some point make a motion to accept whatever we come up with.
Does anyone have any suggestions? Mr. Wiscars?
So, Mr. Pearl, the last time I heard you talk about this, I just thought of some ideas that, I had been hearing in the community for the last few months, and it does get a little bit away from being too general, but it seems like if the idea of the high school committee is to get some concrete ideas about where the citizens want to go with regards to direction, I believe you have to have something concrete to talk about. Otherwise, I think there's going to be a lot of talk and not a lot of action items coming out of it. That's just my personal opinion. So the 6 I came up with for you to consider, or for the board to consider. The big contention I hear is, single district solution versus multiple district solution for high school. So that's the general topic, single district solution. There we would talk about Manchester and Pinkerton as the single solutions. Multiple district solution is the number 2. There we would talk about, the Manchester, Pinkerton, Pembroke, Bow, Derry, Londonderry, yada yada solution. The third would be high school transportation, discussing do we transport high school students only to contracted high schools, private schools, discuss RSA 189.9.
Can I just interrupt for a second, John?
Yeah.
And, for whatever, but it wasn't my intention that we were going to give them a list of like subcategories that are included within that. So I don't know
Okay.
if you're just giving that for the benefit of us, like
Yeah.
what we could expect. But my idea is that if we put out a topic, everybody might talk about that topic in a different context than what we think.
Sure.
Because we're not going to give those subcategories. But I just wanted to kick that in there to let you know. Thank you.
Okay. All I'm trying to do is provide a little color from what I've heard from various people. So not everybody has the same ideas on these things. So just trying to give you some thoughts of what I hear from people. The fourth is cost of high school. And again, this isn't subcategory, just kind of explain what I've heard, different opinions. How do we calculate reasonable price for tuition for high school? State averages, Manchester as a baseline. Number 5 is our JCAB policy, explaining it to people, looking for suggestions for improvement. And number 6 is the biggie I hear from a lot of the younger folks, is building a Hooksett High School. That's my input.
Mr. Pearl, could I ask you to reread your list? I'm sorry, I was momentarily distracted with a childcare issue.
Certainly, and I think some of these, there's about 3 of them that I'll indicate that I think John and I are actually saying the same thing in different words. So my first one is Manchester. And just to leave it like that, Manchester, and that would elicit any comments that people want to talk about with Manchester. Hooksett's own high school, I think, is really what John's saying is Hooksett building a high school. Because I don't know how we would have our own high school if we didn't build one. So I think we're on the same page with that. One high school of record.
Would you mind if I commented?
Oh, sure.
I actually think yours is...
Actually, could I have Mr.
Oh.
Pearl finish his list, because I asked him for his list, because I didn't write it down. Thank you.
Pardon me.
So you're up to one high school of record? You got that one? Okay. Contract with multiple high schools and special education.
It's only 5, right? You had 5 before.
Oh, I'm sorry, transportation I left out. That's the one that John and I had together too. Transportation, I don't think I said before. So I think John and I are pretty much the same on transportation. Multiple, I didn't want to use the word versus single and put them in one category, so I have that as 2 separate categories. So it looks like the differences in our list are John has cost of high school. I don't think I have anything that deals with cost. And I don't have anything that specifically deals with JCA or JCD. And I have special education, which John doesn't have, and I split my others into 2 for single versus multiple.
And may I ask a question? Your envision of the 6 tables, the 12 tables, 6 subjects, is that there'll be 2 tables of the same subject?
Yes, and that's just to make it go faster.
Okay.
So when Becky and I talked about this, we said, well, we could have 12 tables and 12 subjects. And then everybody has to go to the table. And if you have a 10 to 12 minute discussion, you're talking 2 hours right there. And then as she started to talk about the concept of having these open subjects, to me, it started reducing the number of subjects we had to have, because we weren't going to sit down somebody and ask them if they agree with a certain specific policy. We're just soliciting their information about that whole subject. So it kind of made sense to either go from 12 to 6 to keep everything even, so that's kind of how we got to 6.
I like the idea of keeping it more general, so you don't lead the people in a certain way with their discussion. Because we're seeking information from them, we don't need to provide them the specifics of what they need to talk about, because Manchester could go in a totally different way than we would anticipate it to go, depending on who arrives at the round table.
Correct, and just to envision how this is going to happen, as people sit down at the table, there'll be an easel with a tablet on it, and that paper will be flipped over when the new group comes, so there will be a blank page. We're doing that so that people that sit down are not looking at the tablet to take the ideas of the other group, particularly whatever would be first, and try to think that that's what they have to talk about at that table. So we're also making that effort to just try to see when those people sit down, and there's a little sign that says Manchester, what do they want to talk about? What is first and what's most important? So we're really making an effort to do that. So that was part of the general subjects and kind of clearing the palette as far as what the discussion had been. The other thing to remember is that the facilitators are going to have training, and Becky is going to have them kind of instruct people that that's what we're after. And they're going to try to keep them on track of people not debating with each other, but each person just talking and giving their input. So if I could go over this, I think, and John, since you're the only other one that chimed in, we're on the same page about Hooksett High School. And was that what did you say you liked my?
Yeah, I was actually, I like that better, because by saying building, we make some assumptions there, and I mean, I know I've heard from different people about leasing options, so if you keep it at Hooksett High School, then you don't take leasing off the table.
Excellent. So,
Mike or Cheryl, do you have any input of things that you specifically?
I think the
Like-
6 subjects that David Pearl has expressed here, I think make the most sense.
Okay. Mr. Dubus?
Yeah, I would say certainly the 4 that they both have. I don't think perhaps not the policy one, the JCA, JCB policy. Maybe not that one, and instead maybe something either about cost or
Mr. Pearl
special ed.
didn't have that one.
What's that?
That was Mr. Liscar's, not Mr. Pearl's.
Right, right. So I like the 4 that they both had together. And in addition to that, probably the special ed. And I'm not sure on the last one.
okay, so it seems we're in agreement on Hooksett High School, one high school of record. We like that terminology.
I like one high school of record separate from multi-schools. That's 2 different subjects.
Yep. And do we like that term, one high school of record? That sentence?
Yes. I do.
Well, if you're gonna put 2 contract, multi-school contract, why not put single school contract as one of the subjects instead? Just keeping the same phrase. I mean, single.
So contract with one high school,
Or just single school contract.
single school
No.
contract?
No? You know what?
I like that one.
I'm okay with
As
it.
long as they're both the same. Then multi-school contract.
Okay. Contracts, I guess.
Contracts, yeah.
Yeah. Single school contract. Okay. That's 3. And then
Transportation.
transportation. That was, yep.
I think we should include high school special education issues. Or high school,
Okay, and we kind of skipped Manchester. Were you on board with just the word Manchester? Or,
yeah, I don't know what you really mean by that,
Well, we could add to it. I went for vague, is what I was trying to
I don't know
do.
if that would be covered.
Manchester High School.
High school in Manchester.
I wanted to avoid Manchester High School contract. That's what I was trying to avoid. Because I didn't really want it to get into people discussing the merits of the contract and, that kind of detail, but it's up to the board.
I need to interject for a moment. Mr. Pearl, I need you to step in as the chair for 5 minutes while I walk down to the College Gym because I have not received a text back
Okay.
on where my children need to go and I need to speak to their dad. You can do it from your seat,
Okay.
you don't, I'll be right back.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I think that's fine, or something about continue education in Manchester, or, I don't know, or just Manchester, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Well, Mike, one of the reasons I wanted to use that term, just Manchester, is so that if someone wants to just sit down and go, we're at Manchester, we love it, everything's great, we're not guiding them into that, well, should we continue or not? And almost setting up the negative by saying, should we continue?
Okay.
So that's why I boiled it down to one word.
yeah, and I don't think we should spend too much longer on it. I mean, I think whatever we have for category, we're gonna get different comments on,
Yeah.
something in there. They'll fit it somewhere,
Well, and I don't mean to spend too much time, but in talking to Becky again, she said, the words here are really going to be important, because this is what the facilitators are going to be instructed to drive the discussion toward. So, if this is our only input to the whole function, is these 6 words, because the rest of it, we're going to be staying out of the discussion and everything, so. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we're just really left with 1. So we had, John had cost of high school, I had special ed, and John had JCB. So I think it's really down to one of those 3.
Well, if I may interject, I think I've heard, the will of the board, if I will, the majority here, talking about they liked your list to start with, and then including the ones that we'd agreed on. So, I think the cost will come up. I think JCB will come up in the other discussions.
Okay.
And I think we should put some focus on special education. I think it's a good idea, and get some input, and hopefully we get some people show up that can give us some good input.
And maybe just special education. You don't have to say much more than that, do you?
Right, because the other thing is that the whole thing is billed as high school discussion.
Yeah.
So we're expecting
No,
people
it's
to
high
come
school.
talk about everything that relating to high school, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess at this point, I will why don't I read these for the record? Leanne, would you like that in the motion? I'll go ahead and make the motion. I make a motion to accept the following subjects for the upcoming high school roundtable discussion. Subject 1, Manchester. 2, yeah, well, so they're not blending together. 2, Hooksett Zone High School. 3, single high school contract. 4, multiple high school contracts. 5, transportation. And 6, special education. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
One quick question. Okay,
Yes,
Are
Mr.
we
Weaver.
the date's still on for April 17th?
Yes, we're on for April 17th. We have the training on April 8th, with possibly April 9th if people can't make it. I'm still looking for facilitators and volunteers. I have about 8 people that are firm, and probably about as many that are on a list to probably come. So it has been a little bit tricky trying to find people that are not seen as having an opinion, because we're looking for people that can be facilitators that are seen as neutral to start with. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. Okay.